Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. I'm excited today to talk about capture management. We're going to be talking about pipeline, etc. If you were here for training I've done previously, I tried to put too much information into a 30-minute session. And so I decided to break that 30-minute session up into 5 30-minute sessions. And that's what I'm going to try to cover this week. We'll talk a lot about it. But before we get started, I'd just like to say thank you to those who show up early and on time. For any of us who do events like this, we really appreciate that. It helps us get the ball rolling. So thank you. And my way of saying thank you is to give you a tip of the day. And today's tip is to stop learning and start doing. I get so many people who have watched, I don't know if this is your first time or how long you've been watching my training, but today is May 15th, 2023. And we're pretty darn close to 300 training sessions like this over the past 12, 15 months or so, since March 2022, right? I've done a ton before then, but every single day we've been doing training. And I have some people who've been here for a lot of them, 50 or 100 trainings. And I really want to encourage you, whether it's me that you're coming to watch and learn from, whether it's YouTube or somewhere else, is be careful of spending too long learning and not enough time doing. The way that I provide my trainings is I really try to make sure there's action that you can take after every single training. And so make a point of doing that. Go, what action am I taking away from today's training on introduction to federal sales capture management, right? What are you taking? What are you learning? And what could you do? What one little thing could you do that makes that training go beyond just learning and turns it into actual doing? So that's my tip of the day for those of you showing up early and on time. I appreciate it. Some of you have been camped out in tents all night long waiting for the event. I appreciate that. I really do. It motivates me to come back and to keep working hard. So thank you. I joke a little bit with it, but I really appreciate those of you showing up early and on time and over again. It drives our passion for doing this. Okay, so let me share my screen and we're gonna get rocking and rolling. Let me turn this caption off. Make sure I'm good to go on some of the stuff I want to do. Okay, today we're going to talk about federal capture. I want to give you a federal capture overview. I've done a lot of training in the past on federal business development. Sales, obviously, is what I teach. But today I want to focus on federal capture management. When you think about capture, and I'm going to talk today about obviously what a capture is and go into that. But when you do capture, right, you're going to have a lot more success in your company. And this is what I want for you. I want you to start seeing the success that you planned for when you took the job that you have or when you started the company that you've started. If you do capture correctly, a very important part of sales, you're going to have the success in your company that you wanted. Too often, though, we make a mistake, and I call it the biggest mistake here at the moment is this reactive bidding, right? And I'm not talking about those of you who flat out have a process or have made a decision to just bid, and not to capture. I don't mean that. I mean those of us who think we're doing sales and we're just putting something in the pipeline and then responding to an RFP or putting a bid response, right? That's reactive bidding. And that's basically not doing any capture at all, not sales at all. That's transactional activity. And so when you don't do capture, you're just bidding in the blind. You're bidding with no knowledge. Capture is about having that knowledge, which we'll talk about. So in today's training, I'm going to answer 3 main questions that are important when you're looking at capture. First is, what is capture? The second are, what are the key parts of capture? What are you doing in capture, right? And then the third one I want to tackle are how your capture management activities can really help proposal writing and to make your proposals stronger, make them winning proposals. So that's what we're going to cover today. If that sounds good, put capture rocks into the chat. If you're watching the replay, put it in the comments, but come along by putting something into the comments there and let me know you're there. Okay. So if you're not familiar with me, my name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I want to welcome you to my federal daily sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When you follow a process A to Z, you're going to have predictable, repeatable results. And that's what I want for you. Do me a favor. Put your company name and your core competency, 2 or 3 keywords into the chat. Let buyers, others in the community, let me know who you are. Let us remember who you are by seeing it over and over and over again. And then also, if you're open to connecting on LinkedIn, this is a connection platform. If you're out on YouTube or somewhere else, come on into LinkedIn and join it, because here is where you can have dialogue. Out there, it's really me to you. But when you come into LinkedIn, all of us are able to communicate back and forth. So let us know if you're open to connecting on LinkedIn so other people can reach out to you. Finally, I just want to say thank you to the sustaining members of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. Without you, none of this would be possible. The directories we put out, the information we shared, the training that we provide. We don't take funding from government contractors. From the government or from large prime contractors. Our funding comes from sustaining members like you. We're self-funded. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of all those who are benefiting from everything the GovCon Chamber puts out. It's because of you sustaining members. Okay, let's tackle what is capture management. Let's in federal sales, there's three parts of sales that I described. There's business development, there's capture management, and there's proposal writing. And so business development is about finding an opportunity, put it in your pipeline, and proposal writing is writing a response to the government. And in between is the actual sales meat of that sandwich, if you will, and it's capture management. So capture management is about learning more about the customer and who they are, right? Understanding the agency's mission. When you think about a customer, there might be an agency or even a department, then an agency, and then underneath that is the program office. And so your customer has kind of different levels to them. They're an onion that as you're doing capture, you're either peeling back that layer and you're learning more about them, or you're putting more and more layers on as you continue to know more about them. So that's understanding that customer more than just what you might see in a PWS or an RFP when it drops, right? You want to go learn about that customer. You want to learn about the requirement. Where did this requirement come from? What are you trying to do with it? Obviously the technical depth or the scope of the requirement that's there, but you also want to get an understanding of the requirement in the context of everything else that customer is trying to do. And the last thing, as it relates to learning more about your customer or learning more in the capture management activity, is understanding your customer's expectations. There's some things that they write into the PWS, et cetera, that says what they want to get done. But when you do capture, you're in there learning this from the customer themselves. They're sharing their expectation. Maybe those expectations that they have that they weren't able to write down because they couldn't articulate it, or the contracting office didn't really want to include it in there. Whatever it is, when you have conversations and you're learning more, you're able to uncover those expectations that are out there. The next thing about capture management, when you think about what is capture management, it's about shaping the opportunity, right? So you're learning about the customer and you're researching and you're going in and having discussions, but all of it is driving towards two main purposes: shaping the opportunity's acquisition approach and shaping the opportunity's technical approach. This week, by the way, I'm doing 5 days of training on capture. And so I'll go into more of these in particular as we go along. I have a whole training, I think, just on shaping the opportunity. And so I don't want to push it all into 30 minutes. I'm going to spread it out. But from a high level, when I say shaping the acquisition approach, that's the contracting officer. What decisions are they making about this requirement that they have when they're coming to industry trying to buy from industry? Whether it's a contract vehicle, set aside type, things like that. That's the acquisition approach, how they will acquire the services or product for that requirement. The technical approach is the scope, right? So think of it cloud, for example. If the government wants to get on cloud, do they want to get on Oracle Cloud? Do they want to get on Google Cloud? Do they want to get on Microsoft Cloud? Shaping the opportunity is trying to convince them to go to the cloud that you love best. Right. And so that's the idea of technical approach, is you're getting in and shaping the requirements. And you do this with the program office. And so in there, they're the ones with the need. They're the ones looking to talk to subject matter experts like you and to see you as a trusted advisor as they're understanding and shaping and writing down the requirements for an opportunity that'll be coming out. The third thing about capture management out there is about positioning your company favorably with buyers. So when you have discussions, when you're in there learning more about the customer, you're just the very fact that you're having conversations is helping them know, like, and trust you. And people buy from those they know, like, and trust. So you're in there early, and the government buyer, the people you're talking to, they're seeing you favorably because you're listening. You're in there talking to them about their needs. You're trying to understand the requirement. You're not just trying to come in and bid and get a piece of a contract. You're trying to truly help them, and they can see that as you do the research. They can see that you care. There's this great line that says people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And in this case, you can expand it a little bit. They don't care what you say you know in the proposal until they know that you care, and you're positioning your company favorably if all of the people who are going to make a decision are going to remember your company's name, maybe even you, but most importantly, your company's name. The fourth thing is capture is about building a winning team. We can't do this alone. The bigger the opportunity gets, the more you need teams. And so in capture, you're identifying who you need on that team, and then you're building that team. And finally, capture is about engaging the buyer long before the competitors. And what this means is for many people who did that biggest mistake where they put something in the pipeline and they basically respond to it when the RFP comes out, they're not doing anything to engage that customer. They're not doing anything to try to shape or influence that opportunity, but you are when you do capture. So capture is about getting in there and really engaging this buyer and talking to them in a way that is collaborative, compared to when you just respond to the RFP. It's just responsive and reactive. And so the buyer is really not going to know who you are. You have this whole period. Think about it, right? I mean, 3 months is a very short timeline to go after an opportunity in the federal space. Really, it's more likely that you've got 6 months before an RFP drops and when you put it in your pipeline. Or if you're even doing this more proactively, you got 12 and 24 months. And so you have all this time to get in there and do capture while your competitors are sitting and waiting for the government to tell them something. Hey, here's the next thing you need to do. Here's the next document I want you to respond to. Here's an RFI, whatever it is. Capture is about getting in the door and engaging the buyer, not just responding. So hopefully that makes sense. A quick intro of what capture management is. I want to talk about the different parts about capture management. And as you go through, and by the way, I'm trying to go back and forth, decide whether I want slides to build with animation or let you just see it all on here. So if you got feedback, let me know on how it works for you. Do you prefer to see the whole slide, or do you prefer to see it build by major bullet? But anyways, there's three main areas that I want you to pay attention to when you think about capture, right? And the first one is information. Capture management is definitely about information gathering. You're going out, you're trying to talk to the customer, talk to anybody out there who might know about the customer, teammates, et cetera. You're talking to all these people and you're trying to gather as much information. Information, knowledge is power. It allows you to be able to execute on that information you're finding. And so some of the examples of information you want to find are the opportunity background. So what I mean by the opportunity background is a little different than what you see in a PWS. So if you go into a performance work statement or any kind of the set of documents for an opportunity that's coming out in the RFP, you'll see them have a section right at the beginning called background. That's not what I mean. That's their background. That's where they're talking about the program office and some of the things they're doing. What I'm talking about when I say opportunity background is where did this come from? Is this a new opportunity? Is it a recompete? If it's a recompete, right? How happy are they with the customer or the incumbent? What have they been doing on this opportunity? Did they start a long tail requirements definition phase where they're really trying to define the requirements that are coming out? So was this previously awarded on a different vehicle? It's coming out on this one. Any of that information about the opportunity? Have there been RFIs, et cetera? Understanding, if you've ever seen me do a training on the roadmap of the acquisition lifecycle for the federal government, they have all these stages, like 30 or 40 different steps they go through as they bring something from the idea to the award. You want to understand, where have they gone? Have they done an independent government cost estimate, right? This is where they're setting their own understanding of what they think it'll cost. And then they're looking to industry to see if there's a match. Well, opportunity, when you gather information and you're gathering information about the opportunity background, that's what that means, is really understanding it from all different angles. And then there's these traditional pieces of information you really want to get. And you don't want to leave it to just a performance work statement where they might mention some challenges or they might mention objectives. Yes, those are a great start. But when you do capture, you're talking to somebody. You're talking to either industry or the government buyer and understanding what are the challenges and pain points they run through. Sometimes it's so easy because you go into an agency and they've got a document from the OIG, or they got an Office of Inspector General, or they got a document from the Government Affairs Office that are labeled sometimes top challenges, top management challenges. There's been documents out there about DoD's top cybersecurity challenges. So digging into that, but also meeting with the program office, you begin to understand It's like, hey, you've been on Microsoft for a while. Do you like that? What are the challenges you run into? Do you like how they drop features all the time? Whatever it is, you're trying to explore those pains, because your solution is this balm, this fix to a pain they feel. But if they don't feel the pain, how can they see your solution as as that balm, as the cure to what ails them, right? And so you want to make sure you're not only understanding it for yourself so you can get it into proposals, et cetera, but you also want to make sure you're having the conversation so they're reminding themselves of the pains and the challenges they have, because often customers forget about that. They know their own little world, but they don't know the bigger problems that are out there. Goals and objectives, very similar to the pain points, right? As they might be written down in the PWS, and they'll have some objectives in there, but what are you really trying to get done? Right. And so having these conversations, you can understand goals and objectives from the written standpoint, and then also the discussion standpoint. I call them implied needs and explicit needs. Implied needs are things that are kind of noodling around. Well, we wish we had that, and they didn't really write them down. But explicit needs is, you know what, we need this. As salespeople, as capture managers, our job is to help them see an implied need, a need that kind of is something they want, as an explicit need, something we need. And that's where you sit there and go to town, because you respond to the proposal based on the RFP documents, and then you can slide in some additional information that you have learned by doing that information gathering around goals and objectives. And the last bullet I have for information gathering as it relates to capture management is getting in there and understanding the customer's voice and their language. To me, this primarily is information that you would gather from written documents and written material, right? Even actually recorded briefings if they do that. But I'm talking about strategic documents or annual reports, industry day slides, things like that, or industry day briefings where you can listen to them talk. But you want to hear, how do they talk, first off, about some of the jargon that might be used. That's really important. There's an example of this term called DevSecOps. It's a development type term, but DevSecOps. And very recently, industry has been toying around with making it SecDevOps, so security development operations. And it's really important that if you're talking to a customer, you don't get so far ahead of them that you're on this cutting edge way of talking about DevSecOps and calling it SecDevOps. You want to understand, what are they using, and how do you talk? How do you make sure you use that same jargon language? But also, there's this language around the challenges they face. You don't want to describe cybersecurity risks in a way that matters to banks or to Walmart. You want to describe cybersecurity risks as it relates to DoD or as it relates to EPA or whoever the agency you're working with is. Well, they have strategic documents. They have plans out there that you can ask to get a copy of if you can't find them on the internet. And when you get them and you read them, you really begin to you position yourself to be able to talk using that customer's language, speaking a little bit in that customer's voice, not that person, but the agency's voice. This is the way we describe something. So that's information gathering as part of capture management. The second major part of capture management that I want you to track on is identifying the selection board. This is really, 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 really important. Selection board basically are the people who are going to look at your proposal when they get it, evaluate it, and say yes or no, right? There's a formal process of what yes and no means, but basically the selection board, and it could be called many different things, the selection board, though, are the people who are going to evaluate your proposal and decide on whether you're going to be a winner or a loser. That's simple, right? I mean, I'm not trying to sit there and label this according to the FAR. And what that means is you need to figure out who's going to be the contracting officer, because they're going to be looking at, let's say, the pricing or the acquisition details. They're going to be looking at whether you used 11-point font or 14-point font, all that kind of stuff. Who's going to look at the technical scope? Who's going to look at the past performance and decide whether those are good? Smaller opportunities have less people. Bigger opportunities have many people, and you want to begin to figure out who they are. You can do your research, and capture, it takes time, but you can begin to find out who was doing that. You might reach out to, for example, the incumbent or somebody who bid on it in the past and see if they got any recommendations for you. Hey, did you guys ever do a debrief? Did you find out who was looking at your documents? You could meet with the customer, the program office. Literally, you could be asking them, who's tracking on this? You might not use the word selection board, right? But who's able to evaluate our proposals to even know whether it makes sense and technically acceptable, right? Understanding who are the leaders within program offices. When you meet with a program office person and you're having conversations, you can say, hey, when you look at proposals that come in, what are some of the things that are just not specifics, but what generally do you like to see in there? For example, I talked to a contracting officer and they say they tend to want to see this type of thing. What about you? By asking that question, not only can you learn it if you get the answer, right? If they have an answer for you, but also you can begin to understand, would they be somebody who's actually on the selection board? So depending on how you do your capture, you can find this information, but most importantly, you just got to try to identify who are going to be the people looking at your proposal, because those are the people you want to talk to early on. And those are basically the people you're trying to write to in addition to being compliant. The last major part of capture that I wanted to talk about from this introduction level is solutioning. I feel like sometimes people wait to the proposal to start writing, wait till the RFP drops to start writing the proposal. I feel like they're waiting too long. If you're doing capture correctly, you know that you've got a good opportunity in your pipeline that you're going to write a proposal to. And so capture to me is about getting an earlier start. It doesn't mean you spend a ton of hours, right? The whole point of moving through capture stages is to determine whether you're going to invest more and more energy into an opportunity. But you want to start talking about solutioning, and solutioning is this idea of basically just figuring out, here's the customer's requirement, here's our technical approach, right? And when you do that, you're truly beginning to understand the requirements that they have by thinking about the solution. Well, we're thinking about doing this, and your colleagues might go, well, wait, it's not addressing this task area, or it's not addressing this kind of challenge they're facing. You're able to engage your teammates and begin to find the ones that really work before you write a TA. When you start just at a high level talking about solution, how would you do this? What are you thinking about? Could you do this? Things like that. You're engaging your teammates. So it's helping you build that relationship as you're getting closer to RFP, but it's also allowing your teammates to begin to get engaged with the capture process. It shouldn't be subcontractors are on their own. They should be part of that activity of shaping an opportunity or understanding it. So solutioning is one of the best ways. Let's all look at all the requirements and figure it out. The last part about solutioning that I love is this ability to go in and talk to the customer and start saying, hey, this is the direction we're thinking, right? You're not trying to share anything overly proprietary that you might be worried about. But I talked about Oracle and Google and Microsoft Cloud, for example, AWS. Well, you could be talking to a customer saying, hey, we're thinking about recommending you go this way. Oh, yeah, we tried that 3 years ago. We hated it. Well, okay, thanks for telling us, right? So beginning to bounce solutioning back to your customer. We're thinking about really putting the focus. One of my favorite things is communication and outreach, user adoption when it comes to technical projects. I might go in and say, hey, we're really thinking about focusing on the challenge of getting users to adopt. Oh my God, yeah, that's why most of our projects go south, is because the users just reject it when we get there. Okay, good. So if we come in with a solution that is not only just tech heavy, but a little bit of communication heavy, that might be helpful to you. Oh yeah, I hadn't even thought of that, right? And so if you can have these conversations, you're talking to the customer about solutioning, you're able to start figuring out what's working for them, what's not working for them. And you're able to keep giving that information back to your colleagues, teammates, proposal managers, whoever. And I get, by the way, just really quick, if I come back here, I get that some of you are small businesses, right? Remember, my guidance is if you're under 3 million or haven't been in business for 3 years, you should seriously be looking at subcontracting under a small. So a small business doing 5, 10, $20 million a year, there's a lot of room for you to grow there. And so your capture will be a little different, where you're doing a lot of assist. This kind of capture, when I'm talking about having people, you've got to have at least 3 people who are going to be tracking on it, like a proposal manager, a capture manager, and somebody else on the team, leadership or whatever. When you're at that level, you can do a lot of what I'm suggesting. When you have less people, it's a little harder. So you find that balance, but it's the same kind of activity. So the last thing I want to talk about is how, why do capture, right? Why do capture correctly? And how can capture make proposals much stronger and be better and be winning proposals? That's what I'm really looking for, is capture is making proposals lined up to be winning proposals. I describe it as the capture scoring as a winning proposal score, meaning if I do these capture activities, I'm going to have a top winning proposal. So here are some examples of how capture can really make proposals better for your company. The first thing is you're able to, when you're doing capture correctly, you're able to continuously refine and focus on slam dunk opportunities. Slam dunk opportunities are ones that you feel like were written for you. The more you get to know it, the more you confirm to you and your colleagues and your teammates that, hey, this opportunity is one that we can win. And so capture done right is going to make sure that your company is focused on slam dunk opportunities. And that makes proposals better because you're writing proposals on what you're good at and you're not writing proposals on random requirements. Which goes to the second bullet here, right? Write only to the very best opportunities. When you have slam dunk opportunities and when you have enough of them, you're going to run into a challenge where you're, do I go left or right on two slam dunk opportunities? Well, when you're doing capture, you'll begin to add more to it. So both opportunities could look great, but you have better capture activity on B, this B opportunity compared to A opportunity. You're getting more traction. Maybe you're able to talk to the program manager and they're sharing more details like I described. You're gathering information better on opportunity B. Well, now you begin to focus your energy, or the proposal folks could focus their energy on opportunity B, and they'll write only to the very best opportunities. And the very best opportunities are defined both by the requirements that they want, but also by the traction you're getting with the customer. If your customer's not talking to you, then that's not a very best opportunity. It's still a slam dunk opportunity, but it's not, one of the very best ones. Another way that capture helps proposals get better and to be stronger is that when you're doing capture and you're talking to the customer, remember I talked about the program office, but this can be done with the acquisition shop as well, is you're maximizing your company's strengths. Hey, we're a Microsoft Gold partner or CMMI level 3, or our strengths are our past performance. Like we really did a project just like this with a sister service, not Army, but Air Force, but it was this thing and it did this kind of results. And you're able to talk to your strengths because you're going to weave your strengths into the proposal. And so you're maximizing your company's strengths. And when you're shaping an opportunity, which I'll talk more about later this week, when you're shaping an opportunity, you're able to shape that opportunity so the customer is focused on your company's strengths. They don't know it, right? I mean, obviously they're thinking it, but what they're starting to believe is that what you say is important is what they should think is important. And so that's maximizing the strengths. And the reverse of that is what you say is not that important. Your company weaknesses generally is what you're advocating there. They begin to see as not as important. So an example is there's a certification called CMMI, and it might be CMMI level 3, and you have CMMI level 2. Well, you could begin to talk to them about how CMMI level 3, that certain level of certification, it's really not that important. And so you're taking something that they thought was a requirement, and maybe it's just been in every proposal for the last 10 years, and so they keep it in, but you're getting rid of it. You're saying, you know what, CMMI level 2 is good enough. And so you're minimizing your weakness, which is that high rating CMMI level. And so that's capture though. You're getting in and helping the customers see your strengths as more important to them and see your weaknesses as less important to them. That is sales flat out. The next reason that I have listed here that, why capture is so vital to proposal writing and how it can help make it better is that when you do capture and you're talking with a customer, you're going to be able to make informed decisions, not uninformed decisions around proposal development. When the proposal managers are trying to, decide, do we go this way or do we go that way? Many times they'll have to guess, not many times, they're always going to have to guess if you don't do capture. But if you do capture, now you're bringing them information and saying, I talked with Sally, she said this, I asked this, and this is how I understand this part. Well, now the proposal manager, the proposal team, whether you're a big company or small, they're able to make proposal development decisions from an informed basis, not an uninformed basis. And that's the difference between just bidding blindly and doing sales, doing capture correctly, and making those informed decisions. So keep that in mind, because that's vital that you have that you're enabling your proposal team to make informed proposal development decisions. And the last thing is that I just put here, and there's so many ways that capture can help proposals, but I put down just 6 as an example. The last one I put down that's really important is stronger technical approach. And this goes back to solutioning. The more I talk to the customer about solutioning, the more I do capture with my teammates and talk to them about solutioning and getting more than just my brain on this problem, but getting several, well, the stronger our technical approach is going to be. And that's one of the criteria, right? Always technically acceptable, but we don't want technically acceptable. We want technically, wow, that's knocking it out of the park, if that's a phrase, right? And so you want a stronger technical approach, meaning we really see your requirements and understand it, and this is what we're going to do. So capture management is about caring enough to learn your customer's requirements in depth. Take that time, right? And then shaping your solution early enough to get feedback from the customer so it is strong. And finally, implementing an informed, not uninformed proposal development process. When you do this, you're going to start winning more. If you value these trainings that we do, become a sustaining member today. If you're already making money in the government space, you want to go to the next level and you'd like to work with me and my team, reach out to us. We've got a BD Accelerator workshop. It's a 90-day program. Happy to talk to you about it. Just ping me in LinkedIn messaging and I'll get back to you. And remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.